This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by Italiancitizenshipassistance.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And in this episode, we wanted to talk about what is called a Diffida. This is basically something that could become necessary if, for example, a process at an Italian consulate is going on for a longer period of time than what it should be. So Marco, rather than my jumping into this, could you explain to us a little bit more about the Diffida and how it's used, and also how you would go about sending this to the proper authority?
In this episode, we will talk about extreme cases where the consulate is not providing you with an answer regarding your application. So it's not telling you whether your application was approved or denied within a time frame set by the Italian law. And we have said it multiple times in the several episodes that we have recorded where we talked about citizenship by descent. The consulate has up to 24 months to tell you whether your application was approved or denied, even if you can tell normally at the very beginning of the process when you submit the application to the consulate whether your application will be approved, because normally if there are problems with your documents, the consulate will tell you immediately and they will give you the opportunity to rectify the situation, provide additional documents, or maybe amend information on documents. But legally speaking, the consulate has up to 24 months to give you an official answer, and in some extreme cases, the consulate will delay giving you the result of your application, maybe because they're backlogged, or maybe because in that particular time they are understaffed. But regardless, if you don't get an answer from the consulate within 24 months from the time in which your application was submitted, then you are entitled to request formally an answer. Also, before we talk about the Diffida and what it is and how to send it, I wanted to briefly touch on citizenship through marriage, because it can also happen when you apply for citizenship by marriage that you don't get a response during the time frame that you're actually supposed to get one. And the office which is processing your application for citizenship by marriage, which is the Ministry of Interior, has up to 36 months to provide you with an answer. With the most recent change in the law, the processing time, the maximum processing time is 36 months. So what happens if you don't get an answer? Of course, it doesn't normally happen that you don't get an answer within that time frame, but it could happen. It has happened in the past that the consulate didn't process the application promptly. So what you can do in that situation is you can send, if you want to, a letter of formal notification, in Italian Diffida, which is normally sent by an attorney. You could potentially send it yourself, or also delegate another professional to send it on your behalf. But the norm is that an attorney sends it. Also, if an attorney sends it to the consulate, it is more effective. Generally speaking, the consulate will process your application immediately after receiving the Diffida, because the Diffida includes a provision which basically indicates to the consulate that if they don't process your application without further delays, you will be entitled to take legal action, which is something that, of course, they want to avoid. So normally a Diffida is very effective, and once it's sent, if the application wasn't processed in the time window during which they were supposed to process it, the result will be that they will process it and formally inform you that your citizenship application was approved or denied. Of course, in most cases, it will be approved, because, like I said, you will know if there were problems with your application at the very beginning of the process when you submitted it, because the consulate will tell you if the documentation was complete or not.
Marco, I have to say this is absolutely fascinating. But one thing you did say was that this is an extreme that we're talking about. This is not the norm that we're talking about. But when you're saying that it's not the norm, and also especially hearing about this process, what kind of numbers are we talking about here? Is this like, is there still a large amount of people that have to go through this, or is it a very minuscule percentage at the end of the day?
So, of course, I can base the information that I'm providing on what happens with my clients. And I have to say that when it comes to processing applications for citizenship by descent, the consulate is normally very on time. So they do process the application within the 24 months that are allowed by the Italian law. However, I've seen it to be more frequent to be necessary for an attorney or the Italian citizenship assistants to send a diffida to the consulate when it comes to citizenship through marriage, because I've seen more delays with processing applications for citizenship by marriage compared to citizenship by descent. And of course, that has to do with the fact that the applications for citizenship through marriage are processed by the Italian Ministry of Interior. So while you submit the application through the consulate, the Ministry of Interior is the entity that will inform the consulate of the approval or denial of your application. And I've seen a little bit of more delays when it comes to citizenship through marriage. I'd say that probably about maybe the 20-30% of the applications that I've presented for my clients, there were delays with them, and we had to send a letter to the ministry and the consulate, and then the applications were processed without further delays.
Well, thank you, Marco, for shedding a bit more light on that and clarifying a little bit more. But within this letter, this diffida, what is it actually that is spoken about? What's included? Like, what is the content of this letter?
So this is a letter that is normally drafted, like I said, by an attorney, but that potentially the person, the applicant itself, could draft. And there needs to be 3 elements. So, of course, the first element is the formal request that you make for the office that is processing the application to proceed immediately. The second element is a time frame. So you give them a deadline by which you want your application to be processed. That's normally 10 days. And the third element is what you will do if they will not process your application immediately, which is normally you will take legal action. So there needs to be these 3 elements in your letter in order for it to be complete from a legal standpoint. Of course, you will have to indicate your name and last name, so your personal details, information about your application, so the date in which the application was submitted. You will have to include potential follow-ups that you requested by yourself, maybe via email. Maybe you send emails before you engage the services of an attorney to send a diffida. So you want to mention that you try to follow up multiple times with the consulate. Maybe over the course of 2 months, you follow up and you receive no response. And so you are basically forced to now send a letter of formal notification to the consulate or Ministry of Interior. And also, if you're using an attorney, the diffida will need to be accompanied by a power of attorney. In most cases, a letter of authorization where you basically authorize the attorney to write the diffida on your behalf is sufficient. But in some cases, the consulate might request that you provide a formal power of attorney to your attorney signed before a notary. So it's best to talk to the consulate to see what they want exactly before you send out the diffida.
And so how is it that you actually send this letter to them? Is it sent by email or PEC or regular email? Is there any limitation on how they're able to receive this?
In the Italian legal system, a communication sent via email has no legal value. So you will have to send this letter through the mail with registered mail with a return receipt, which proves when the person received the letter from you. Alternatively, you can send it via PEC. The PEC is, we've talked about it before, is a certified email. And if a communication is sent by somebody who has a PEC to somebody who has a PEC, that certifies basically the time in which the communication was received, and that has legal value. If you're having your Italian attorney send a diffida for your application for citizenship by marriage to the Ministry of Interior in Rome, they will likely do so by using an Italian raccomandata, which is the Italian certified mail with return receipt, which is called raccomandata con ricevuta di ritorno. And keep in mind that only your Italian attorney can send a diffida to the ministry or to the consulate. You can't use an American attorney, even if you're dealing with the Italian consulate in your country, meaning in the US. Only an Italian attorney has jurisdiction and can send formal communications to either the ministry in Rome or to the consulate. And a lot of people have asked me if this can be done by telephone, but of course, it's not something that is possible, meaning that you can only send a Diffida through the mail via registered mail with a return receipt or via PEC.
Well, Marco, this has been a very interesting episode, and for me, a very new aspect of getting Italian citizenship that I have been personally less familiar with. Usually I would say I have some familiarity with these topics, but this one was definitely outside of the kind of knowledge base that I've gathered over the years. So thank you so much for this introduction to this topic. And of course, if anybody does need help with a Diffida or any other assistance with getting Italian citizenship, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, Italiancitizenshipassistance.com, or give us a call. The number is on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if anybody is needing any more information about Italian citizenship, moving to Italy, or whatever it may be, that means you're also automatically subscribed to the Italian Real Estate Podcast, another project that Marco and I collaborate on, where we talk about some of the aspects of making Italy your home, such as purchasing, renting, and where you can do that. And of course, if you're interested in hearing more about life abroad as a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can find it on YouTube, Google, or through your favorite podcasting player of choice by searching for Not Your Average Globetrotter. Of course, we've been back here again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much for joining us for this latest episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by ItaliancitizenshipAssistance.com. Later.
Thank you.